Part 67. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 661. Chapter 661 Gift. She asked softly, "So, that child?" "That child was born in the primitive jungle," Lilei said. "When I was more than 1 month pregnant, I found out during the physical review. The little nurse thought it was mine and treated it as a happy event, and everyone was shouting. Everyone knows." In front of so many people, Sutang couldn't say anything to deny it, because the time of pregnancy was easy to estimate. In the primitive jungle at that time, if it wasn't a wild man's, it could only be mine. She lowered her head as acquiescence. So, the matter was confirmed. Everyone was very happy, especially my grandfather, who specially took Sutang to take care of him and urged us to hold the wedding as soon as possible. Xiaoling's heart throbbed hard. Is that why he chose to get married? I heard that they held a wedding. I heard Lilei continue. I went to Sutang and persuaded her to abort the child. She refused to listen and insisted on giving birth to the child. I asked her why. It was obviously a child with an unknown father and an accident. Why should I keep it? She said, "She loves me." These 3 words made Xiaoling's heart ache again. Why can that woman say these 3 words so bravely? Is there any life-saving grace? Then what is the relationship between Xiaoling and Lilei? She felt uncomfortable and said, "What's the reason?" "She loves you, so she wants to give birth to someone else's child." Lilei suddenly glanced at her. It turns out that in Xiaoling's logic, if you love someone, you won't give birth to another person's child? Then, what happened to her and Pei Xian's child, Pei Xiaowai? Who does Xiaoling love? Even the child she adopted was named Xiaowai. His mood suddenly became heavy. But he didn't dare to question her even a little bit. Now that they were so far apart, he didn't want to stir up trouble about Pei Xian again. Even if she still loves someone else, he won't give up on her. Never again. Lilei calmed down and continued. She said she loved me, and she would never marry anyone except me, and she would never have children with anyone except me. If I don't love her, at least let her. She gave birth to this child, giving her a nominal connection with me. I said she was ridiculous and wanted to dissuade her. But she asked me, could I bear to see her die alone and alone? Xiaoling, she is so stubborn, I really can't refuse. Therefore, I can only let the child be born and raised in my name. Apart from me and Sutang, only Grandpa knows about this matter. There is another one like you. Xiaoling, I know this is unfair to you. Even if Li Rui is not my biological child, she has become my nominal child. However, I have never touched her. The only person I love is you." Xiaoling was speechless. This incident had such a huge impact on her that she didn't know how to digest it. She shook her head slightly. Let me think about it." As she said this, she pushed him away and stumbled forward. Therefore, the first time she saw him in the hotel near the airport, she was unwilling to listen to his explanation. She was afraid that she would be soft-hearted and considerate of his last resort, and she was afraid that she would fall again. Now, she has indeed softened her heart and hesitated. However, she told herself over and over again in her heart, "Xiaoling, this is not okay. No matter what the reason is, the huge damage in the past 4 years has been caused, and it must not be easily forgiven." She couldn't bear to fall in love wholeheartedly again. Unconsciously, she quickened her pace. "Xiaoling," Lilei called her in pain and stretched out his hand to pull her. If even this explanation couldn't restore the relationship between them, he didn't know what to do. There is the sound of rustling leaves in the night wind. She was wearing a light white dress, and her figure was petite and a bit fragile. Facing the night wind, she did not look back, and her voice was very soft. "Lilei, so what if it is like that? It's been 4 years, it's been 4 years, please let me go and let me live a peaceful life. She pushed his hand away bit by bit. Li Lei's heart sank a little bit along with her movements. Even though he knew he couldn't keep her, he still followed her steps and took a few steps forward. He suddenly remembered that there was something else in his hand, and quickly stuffed it into her hand. This is the gift I bought for the child you adopted, Xiaoling, please accept it. The voice is soft, almost pleading. Xiaoling felt very uncomfortable, so she accepted the dark blue box and left quickly. Go back to the place where they met just now. Lin Yunan, along with his assistant Wei Wei and several bodyguards, were still confronting Li Lei's bodyguards. Seeing her come out, he breathed a sigh of relief and quickly pulled her over. My aunt, do you know how long you have been here? You are a big star, and you are still running around all day long. Come on, do you know if I will block you, how many paparazzi have you met? Xiaoling lowered her head and got into the car. Lin Yunan sat with her in the back seat of the car, stretched out his hand to press the soundproof glass between the front seat and the front seat, and then turned to ask her, what does Li Lei want from you? Xiaoling shook her head, not wanting to speak. Lin Yunan was very melancholy. In the past few years, he had praised her as a queen, and everything had been smooth sailing, except that her emotional world often caused trouble. Originally, having Pei Xian was enough, but now that Li Lei returns to China, there will be another storm. He has already foreseen the days when scandals will be everywhere in the future. No words were spoken all the way. When I got home, it was already 11 o'clock in the night. Wearing a pair of bare pajamas, Xiaowai came up to her with short legs and gave her a big hug. Sister, he called softly. Seeing this little baby, Xiaoling's depressed mood improved. She bent down and picked him up. You're still up so late. Let's sleep together when sister comes back, he said in a baby voice. This child is very attached to her. Originally, she prepared a special children's room and a small bed for him, but the child always liked to climb into her bed and hug her to sleep together. Over time, it became a habit. Xiaoling was actually helpless, but every time she looked at his watery little animal-like eyes, she couldn't bear to refuse. She secretly made up her mind to try to go home as early as possible in the future so that the child would not have to wait in pain. Sister, what is that? Suddenly, she heard the child ask. Xiaoling turned around and realized that the nanny had brought in a blue box. It was the same one that Li Lei had given her not long ago. This is. She thought for a moment, then told the child truthfully, a gift from your brother. The child jumped for joy, struggled to get off the ground, waving his short legs vigorously, and was about to open the box. It took a long time with his fat and short little fingers to open the box and reveal the contents inside. End of this chapter. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 662. Chapter 662, Social Circle. That turned out to be a toy gun. It is made very similar to a real gun, with a metallic matte color and a cold and heavy texture. Xiaoling did not expect Li Lei to give this to his child. In her mind, this was not a toy that an innocent child should have. Perhaps, this was nothing in their gang, but she really couldn't connect such a cold and cruel killing tool with Xiaohui. Xiaowai was very curious about the toy and reached out to touch it. Xiaoling slapped his hand away, don't move. Xiaohui, who had never been cruel to her, raised his watery eyes and looked at her with some grievance. Xiaoling sighed secretly and softened her voice, this toy is not fun. Can my sister buy you something else? Xiaohui hesitated a little and looked at the toy gun in the dark blue box reluctantly. Xiaoling scolded Li Lei 17 or 8 times in her heart, and finally understood why Li Rui, who was raised by his side, had such a bad temper. He was surrounded by these beating and killing people every day. It was strange that he could be well educated. She suddenly felt a little lucky that the child was not with Li Lei. This thought flashed away, and even she was a little scared. If, if her biological Xiaowei was still alive, if their family of three could be happy, would her son cling to his father, and the father and son would be together? Playing with guns happily? Sister, are you unhappy? Xiao Hui gently pulled her sleeve. She came back to her senses, managed to cheer up, and said with a smile, Sister, I'm not unhappy. She put away the toy gun and said to Xiao Hui, tomorrow, Sister will buy you a model car to play with, okay? The child still looked at the gun reluctantly. This is not a good thing. Xiaoling had a headache. But, Xiao Hui said, Sister, you said this was given to me by a brother. How could that brother give me something bad? A pair of pure eyes looked at Xiaoling unblinkingly. Xiaoling's heart ached again. She didn't know how to answer the child. Maybe everything Li Lei had given him was the best in his opinion, but in her opinion, it was harmful. Just like their love that has suffered many hardships, they always miss it for one reason or another. She reached out and rubbed the soft short hair of the child next to her, and said, Go to bed. She called the nanny over and took away the box of lifelike toy guns. Xiaowei watched the nanny disappear around the corner of the corridor. He picked up his toy bear, held Xiaoling in one hand, and said, Nunyo, okay, go to bed. The big one and the little one went back to the bedroom, and he snuggled into her arms obediently, sleeping soundly. In the dream, he vaguely dreamed of the toy gun. The young Xiaowei still remembered that when he lived in the mountains, he once asked his uncle, Uncle, what kind of person is my father? Uncle said, Your father is very powerful. He can run a company, fight, and is very accurate with his marksmanship. Xiao Hui asked, What is marksmanship? Uncle said, When you return to your father in the future, let him teach you, okay? The younger child nodded vigorously. In his sleep, a sweet smile appeared on the corner of his lips, sucking his thumb beautifully, thinking to himself, his uncle said that mom and dad will be reunited one day. Xiaoling had an uneasy sleep this time. The little guy's saliva drooled all over her body. When she woke up the next morning, her clothes were covered with saliva marks. The little guy also woke up in a daze and waddled outside, still holding a stuffed bear in his arms. Xiaoling grabbed him and asked, Where are you going? Go to the garden and feed the rabbits, he said softly and waxily. Xiaoling looked at his beautiful baby cheeks and suddenly wondered if she had raised him too much like a little girl. Maybe it would be good to let him play with guns or something. Bah! 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 She didn't want to raise her child to be as fierce and rude as Li Rui. She decided that the first thing she would do when she went out was to buy a toy car for Xiaowei. By the way, there were also building blocks and model airplanes. Anyway, the little boy's toys were not just guns. Xiaowei didn't know what she was thinking. She spent a pleasant morning in the small garden with all kinds of small animals. The environment of this villa area is very good, surrounded by large ecological lakes and gardens. This is definitely a luxury in the city center where land is at a premium. The small animals in this large ecological area seemed to like Xiao Hui. During breakfast, Xiaoling even saw the pine cones given to him by the squirrels. Xiaoling is really confused. This child will not be raised as a little girl by her, right? She went out with her heart full of thoughts and asked the driver to go to the toy store and pick out a lot of new toys for Xiao Hui. It was rare for a big star to visit her, and all the shopkeepers in the toy store were all beaming and vying to recommend their most environmentally friendly and best toys to her. Nearby customers also turned on the onlooker mode and took out their mobile phones to take various photos. Not long after, word spread on the internet that she was really good to her children and chose the toys herself. When he arrived at the company, Lin Yunan also received the news and came to the office specifically to find her. It seems that you are good to that child, he said. Nowadays, public opinion is mostly positive. Of course, Xiaoling responded casually, carefully sorting the toys she bought. Of these two cars, Which one is better, the one with remote control or the one that is assembled manually? Lin Yunan didn't bother to help her choose. He crossed his arms and said, "But, what are you going to do next? This child must receive an education and socialize. You can't hide him at home all the time. Send him to a boarding school? Or hire a tutor? What kind of child should be his companion?" A series of questions made Xiaoling stunned. She suddenly realized how lonely Xiaowei was. Is it because he is too lonely that he likes to play with squirrels so much? "I think that little guy is stupid," Lin Yunan stabbed her in the heart very ferociously. "To put it nicely, he is cute, but to put it badly, he is stupid. You must educate him well to avoid losing your reputation as a queen." "It has nothing to do with whether I am a queen or not," Xiaoling retorted instinctively. She didn't want her name to bring any pressure to her child, she just wanted him to grow up healthily and safely. However, the problems Lin Yunan mentioned are indeed a bit difficult. There is no doubt that Xiaowei needs education and companions. "I won't send him to boarding school," she said. The child was so clingy to her that she couldn't bear to leave the child. "So," Lin Yunan asked, "hire a tutor, what about the child's social circle?" Xiaoling lowered her head and thought for a long time. "I will find a way for him to make some friends." End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weiniang. Chapter 663. Chapter 663. Li Lei is here. His status is special. He is the son of the Queen of Heaven, so naturally he cannot hang out with children from ordinary families. Xiaoling hired a tutor for him to teach him the etiquette of upper-class society. This child learned very quickly, and it didn't take long for him to look decent. He walked out clean, pretty and cute, just like a little male, oh no, a little prince. It's time for this cute little prince to meet the world. She held a grand lawn party. Many high-class people and their children were invited to attend. In addition, there were also several media reporters who followed up on the news of the first appearance of the beloved little prince of the Queen's family. 10 billionaire heir, the reporters even prepared the headline. Indeed, before the banquet started, countless people said that this child is so lucky. He is the only son of the popular Queen Ye Xinling. If Ye Xinling never marries for the rest of her life, which seems to be a trend at present, then her huge the wealth will one day be his. An abandoned child that no one cared about suddenly became the pride of heaven. If I can be adopted by Ye Xinling by being cute, then I would also like it. A young man dressed as a reporter stayed in a corner of the lawn, chatting with his senior, waiting for the start. His senior is a capable woman, Su Fashion, a senior reporter from the largest entertainment magazine in China, Star Entertainment Weekly. At this time, she was adjusting a camera worth hundreds of thousands in her hand, without raising her head. "You? Come on, this one." She is older than Ye Xinling. "Then let my son go." The young man clenched his fists and refused to give up. "If I abandon him, I can get tens of billions of family property. I am willing." "Ha!" Su Fashion sneered again. She is a friend of Sister Maina. She did an exclusive interview with Ye Xinling not long after she debuted. She has witnessed the hard work of this young girl step by step. Ye Xinling was also born as a commoner back then. She finally finished adjusting the lens and took a few photos. Over there, the child of the vice president of Hong University of Communication was helping her sister get ice cream with concentration on her face. When she was the poorest, she is looked down upon even if she enters a clothing store that costs thousands of dollars. Do you think it is so easy for her to live like this? Isn't it easy? The young reporter curled his lips. It's better to marry well than to do well. Cinderella flew up to the branches to marry Pei Xian, and during the divorce, She shared 10 billion quietly. I'll go and say so. Come on, Dongpei is the most generous. Do you think Dongpei likes men like me? The young reporter touched his chin and became thoughtful. Su Fashion rolled his eyes at the sky. Who are the young people these days? How did you get into their magazine? Is the purpose of becoming a reporter just to be a sugar daddy? She handed the camera to the little reporter. Take more photos of the children. There were many celebrities and powerful people at this banquet, including industrial and commercial directors, TV directors, and real estate giants. However, only inexperienced reporters would go and take pictures of them. These celebrities appear in public every day, but it is rare to see the children they bring with them. Taking this opportunity to take more pictures of the interactions of children, especially the descendants of these celebrities, is serious. The little reporter was daydreaming, but he was unambiguous about his work. He went off as soon as he was given the order. Su Fashion casually went to the buffet area to grab a cocktail, and seemed to be strolling leisurely on the lawn, but in fact he was looking for news spots. Her eyes glanced at the entrance from time to time. Although there were many celebrities from all walks of life coming, judging from her keen sense of smell as a reporter for many years, the real heavyweights had not yet appeared at all. Neither Pei Ziyan nor Li Lei arrived. She didn't believe they wouldn't come. Over the years, whenever Ye Xingling has any major events, Pei Ziyan will be there regardless of rain or shine, even if he has to cancel the emperor's important schedule. And what about Li Lei? There are rumors that he returned to China just to find Ye Xingling, although Su Fashion couldn't understand why he was looking for Ye Xingling with his wife and children. No, wait, is Su Tang Li Lei's wife? There needs to be a question mark on this matter. Su Fashion narrowed his eyes slightly. I still remember a foreign news 4 years ago, saying that Su Tang was pregnant and Li Lei held a wedding with her. So much so that everyone thought the two of them must be a couple. However, Su Fashion intuitively felt that something was wrong. Having been engaged in entertainment news for many years, she has always believed in her intuition. It is precisely because of this intuition that she has far surpassed her peers and become the number one in the industry. At this time, she was slowly thinking in her mind. If Li Lei really came back to find Ye Xingling, it would be impossible for him to come back with his wife and children. How could he take his wife to date his mistress? Even with Ye Xingling's pride, she couldn't stand such anger. So, there are only two possibilities. Li Lei did not return to China to find Ye Xingling, or, he and Su Tang were not married at all. Su Fashion's eyes were a little bright, and he didn't know if it was because of drinking, but he was faintly excited. Coming, suddenly, there was a small commotion in the crowd. She followed the sound and saw, sure enough, it was Li Lei coming. He was wearing a light-colored formal suit, which made his slightly dark wheat-colored skin look handsome and charming. There was a sharp knife mark on his left cheek, but it was not ugly, and instead added a bit of wild charm. In his hand, he held a little boy. He was also dressed in straight clothes, with dark facial features and some mixed-race features. It's Li Rui, the young reporter returned to Su Fashion at some point and excitedly took several photos of Li Lei and the child he was holding. To be honest, among this large group of celebrities and their children, except for Xiao Hui, who has not yet appeared, Li Rui is the one who has been exposed the least frequently. This child has just returned from abroad. His information and personality are a mystery, and he has nothing to do with Xiao Hui. Hui is also the heir to a billion-dollar family fortune, causing countless people to gossip. Li Rui was led by Li Lei in an orderly manner, unmoved by the curious eyes around him. His smiling face was slightly stretched, looking very unsmiling. On the other hand, his father Li Lei had a lazy smile and a warm spring breeze. This really doesn't look like a father and son, the young reporter said without hesitation. Su Fashion also nodded. In fact, apart from the fact that both of them have mixed race characteristics, the child's facial features are not very similar to Li Lei's. The young reporter then sighed, I think he looks like Pei Xian's son. Su Fashan raised his eyebrows slightly and glanced at the young reporter. The young reporter said very seriously, the coffin face is the same. With one sentence, Su Fashan suddenly wanted to laugh. Yes, in terms of temperament, doesn't Li Rui look more like Pei Xian's son? But you underestimate the Pei family's education, Su Fashan said. End of this chapter. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 664. Chapter 664 You don't have a father. Huh, the little reporter was confused. Except for necessary occasions, have you ever seen Pei Xian with a straight face? In our magazine, there are photos of Pei Xian as a child left by his predecessors. Although he is not as lazy as Li Lei, he still looks very gentle and calm. At a young age, he is an approachable leader. A person who is strong enough does not need to keep a straight face to intimidate others. His existence itself is a deterrent. Compared with the little Pei Xian back then, this child of the Li family is completely different in moral conduct. The little reporter nodded in understanding. Over there, Li Lei had already led Li Rui through the security check, walked into the lawn, and walked around the venue. Still with a lazy smile on his face, he greeted a few familiar people and started chatting. Just his eyes scanned the whole place from time to time, as if he was looking for someone. Su Fashan guessed that he was probably looking for Ye Xinling. At this time, there were still a few minutes before the official start of the banquet. Only the staff of Ye Xingling's company were there to greet the guests. Neither she nor Xiao Hui showed up. Su Fashan's interest intensified. Li Lei's behavior was unusual. He really cared about Ye Xinling. But if you care so much, why would you bring Li Rui here? Are you men all missing a chord in your brain? Su Fashan looked at the unsmiling little Li Rui on the lawn and asked the young reporter beside him. The little reporter was confused. What? Su Fashan sighed, what's the matter with you going to the house of the girl you like and bringing the son you had with another woman? Are you not afraid of being estranged from the girl you like? The little reporter followed her gaze and realized who she was talking about. So, he was also shocked, isn't it right? Boss Li's emotional intelligence is lower than mine? Even I know that this is not the way to chase girls. This is not bad without enmity. It seems that not all men are so stupid. Then why did Li Lei take Li Rui with him? He can't get in without Li Rui this time. The young reporter saw some clues. This banquet was held by Ye Xinling for Xiao Hui. Except for us media people, all celebrities must participate with your children. The people invited this time are all families with children aged 3-6 years old. Su Fashan nodded, then shook his head, it's still wrong. What's wrong again? The young reporter couldn't keep up with the big reporter's thinking. Su the reporter said, if you were Ye Xinling, would you invite the children of your love rival to attend the first social banquet for your beloved son? This seems to make sense. Reporter Suda thought for a moment, and a smile suddenly appeared on his lips. Go and find Li Lei's invitation letter. What are you doing? The young reporter frowned. The invitations for the guests entering the venue were all collected by the security guard at the entrance. Although the names of each guest were written on them, it was not easy to find them. I suspect that Li Lei's invitation is a fake. Su Fashan narrowed his eyes slightly and showed a fox-like smile, because it is impossible for Ye Xinling to send an invitation to Li Rui. If it is true, then that's funny. With Boss Li's current status, why would he get a fake invitation and come to this banquet shamelessly? This answer may lead to a series of truths. It is very likely that it will be big news that will cause a sensation in the entertainment industry. Su Fashan was all excited. The little reporter next to her also got excited when she mentioned something. Not much. The young reporter didn't have such foresight as she did. He just thought, my God, Big Boss Li was like a peripheral girl and got a fake invitation to sneak into the banquet. What breaking news! He left in a hurry. Su Fashan continued to drink cocktails slowly, his eyes always falling on Li Lei and his son. The child named Li Rui seems to have good appearance and cultivation, but he seems to be unsociable. No matter who comes to play with him, he tends to ignore them. He raises his chin arrogantly and looks impassive. That expression seems more like her mother Sutang. Strange, why didn't Sutang come along? Su Fashan looked at the child, the smile in his eyes getting stronger. There was one more piece of evidence that Li Lei forged the invitation letter and came to pursue his sweetheart. In a moment, the time is up. Xiaoling was wearing an elegant fairy dress, holding a little boy in her hands, and slowly walked towards the crowd. She is very petite, and her long hair is somewhat casually braided into a pastoral style. The little boy she is holding in her hand is wearing very clean clothes, and her short legs stumble when she walks. She lowers her head, but it is still charming. I saw a little baby fat on his tender cheeks, which made him look very cute. They are obviously such a beautiful mother and son. Against the pale golden sunshine of the afternoon, they look like a pair of pure and flawless angels. As soon as they appeared, they attracted the attention of everyone present. All the guests stopped talking, and even the children stopped playing and turned to look at them. Xiaoling smiled and walked into the crowd. I'm very happy that everyone is so grateful to come to this banquet, she said. The flashlight clicked, frantically capturing her and the child she was holding. Su Fashan's discriminating eyes fell on the child. It was said that he was an abandoned orphan who was adopted by Ye Xinling. So, this child's original family background should not be very good, but now, he behaves so calmly when facing the camera, and smiles from time to time. There is a looming dimple on one cheek, which is very cute. Even more calm and composed than many children who were born into famous families. Xiaoling bent down and introduced everyone with a smile. This is Xiaowei, my son. He is very cute. I hope he can live in harmony with everyone. Several guests also greeted Xiaohui one after another. The child blinked his watery eyes. His reaction seemed a little slow, but he was soft and kept smiling. He looked really cute. Are you Xiaohui? A little girl ran up to Xiaohui and said in a coquettish voice, I heard from my mother that you are very pitiful without a father. Here, I will give you this flower. I wish you good health, find dad soon. As soon as the words came out, the whole place fell silent. Some staff members were already roaring in their hearts, whose naughty child is this so ignorant? Yes, several relationships have been so severely hurt. Everyone adopted this child because they suspected that she was determined not to marry. Now, someone actually came out and stabbed someone's wound carelessly. The little girl's mother was so frightened that she quickly pulled the little girl aside and scolded her harshly. What nonsense are you talking about? End of this chapter. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weiniang. Chapter 665. Chapter 665 Social Star. Xiao Hui glanced at the girl and her mother. He still had a confused expression on his face. He took the flower, smiled sweetly at the little girl, and said softly, Thank you, I like it very much. It was an unknown red flower, blooming gracefully and swaying in the wind. The girl's mother is still very nervous. Their family is just a small vice principal, which is not at the same level as Xiaoling, a white and rich girl with a net worth of tens of billions. Who doesn't know that Xiaoling's love journey is bumpy? Even if Xiaohui is too young to hear what his own child is saying, it's hard to guarantee that Xiaoling won't be angry. The surrounding guests and reporters were also watching this scene, wondering how it would end. In the eerie silence, Xiaohui lowered his head and looked at the flower. Then, he spread his short legs, ran to Xiaoling's side, and raised the flower high. Sister, this flower is for you. His voice was still soft and sweet, with unclear articulation and a child's unique milkiness. I don't have parents, only my sister takes care of me. My sister is the best in the world, the best people. With one sentence, the embarrassment of the scene was eliminated. Everyone breathed a sigh of relief, and many people secretly praised Xiaowei for being smart. The little girl just said that he had no father. The implication was that he had Xiaoling as his mother, but his mother did not have a significant other. That's why it seems so offending. However, Xiao Hui's gentle and delicate word sister was like moving 1,000 pounds, and he easily brought the topic to pass. My sister is still young, what about the other half? Not urgent. Even several big shots in the political and business circles couldn't help but give Xiao Hui a thumbs up in their hearts. Li Lei's eyes narrowed slightly, and then he smiled lazily. The child adopted by Xiaoling does not seem to be as stupid as he seems. He is really a good and lovable child. But Xiao Xiaowei, your sister will soon have a brother. Must. Slightly shifting his gaze, Li Lei's deep gaze fell on Xiaoling. Today, she is wearing a light-colored and very soft lace fairy dress, which is so beautiful that it makes your heart melt under the sun. She bent down, took the flowers from Xiao Hui's hand with a smile, and said, Xiao Hui is also the cutest child in the world. So, the child also laughed happily. Once the crisis was over, the reporters' flashlights began to flash again. Xiaoling held the small red flower swaying in the wind and began to chat casually with the important people. The atmosphere gradually returned to a relaxed and happy atmosphere. All reporters commented in their hearts. For this first time attending a social banquet, young Xiao Hui's performance was amazing. I don't know if he is smart and doesn't show off, or if he has a pure and kind nature, but no matter what kind of person he is very lovable, decent, and generous, and he has not fallen into the title of heir to a billionaire family at all. They have foreseen that a new star is rising in the second-generation circle of upper-class society. Over there, Xiaoling greeted all the guests present. She now has an astonishing net worth and is quite famous. She is no longer the little star that everyone could look down upon in the past. Even though there are still people secretly spreading the rumors that she has achieved her current wealth relying on Pei Xian's divorce settlement fees, however, in this era of laughing at poverty but not at prostitution, they will only win over her, at least on the surface. Xiaoling has been able to navigate social circles with ease since her last life, and she can handle various banquets effortlessly. Today was Xiao Hui's home court. She didn't have much to do. She quickly greeted all the guests except. She raised her head slightly and glanced at a man not far away. The shade is as thick as ink. The man was standing under a mulberry tree, holding a glass of special cocktail with a very light alcohol content in his hand, but his eyes looked like he was drunk. His gaze has been following her, feeling happy and sad at the same time, making people feel ripples in their hearts just by looking at her. Xiaoling's heart ached slightly. She turned her head sideways, forcing herself not to look at him, and walked in the opposite direction to him. Li Lei quickly chased after him. Xiaoling. Several guests nearby looked towards them in twos and threes, and several reporters also raised their cameras to capture their shots. In front of so many people, Xiaoling couldn't give him a cold face, but she still didn't have a good tone. Li Lei. I'm very surprised, why are you here? If I remember correctly, this invitation there is no you in it. He seemed to have expected that she would accuse her, and was not angry. He just said in a good temper, I miss you. So, bring Sutang's son to see me. Her voice became sharp. You also know that that is Sutang's son. Li Lei's voice was slightly lowered, but he still continued to say, Xiaoling, you also know the circumstances under which her child was born. It is impossible to ignore their mother and son. But the relationship between me and Sutang is innocent, and the person I love has always been you. Sorry, this is not the love I want. Maybe he has thousands of choices, but she has her limit, which is that she cannot ride in two boats no matter what. You are very similar to Pei Zion now, you know. She looked at the distant white clouds on the horizon, feeling a little sad. When he was engaged to Wang Jingguan, he talked about responsibility and that I was the only one who could truly love. Haha, Li Lei, if you can accept this kind of love, why wait until now? She turned her head suddenly, looked at him, and said every word like a knife. If I could accept it, I would have lived happily with Pei Zion for a long time. How could there have been so many things later, and who would have gotten you? Li Lei, stop being so sentimental. The last sentence, she refused, turned around and left. He reached out and took her hand. Xiaoling. Let go, she glared at him. Beside him, someone was already pointing. Li Lei was about to say something else, but suddenly, the sound of a child crying loudly was heard. Everyone, including Li Lei and Xiaoling, looked in that direction. I saw several children gathering together on the lawn over there. One of them, a 5 or 6-year-old boy, was crying sadly. In front of him was a pile of toys that had been dismantled in a mess. Since there were many children at today's banquet, Xiaoling specially ordered toys to be prepared. She also stated on the invitation that the children could each bring toys to exchange and play with. Many children have brought their favorite toys. At present, several toys have been dismantled beyond recognition, and their original appearance cannot be seen. The adults didn't know what was going on, so they gathered in that direction. The child's parent is a real estate agent. He was very anxious. He walked to the child in 3 steps at a time and asked repeatedly, "Baby, what's wrong?" End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 666. Chapter 666, What did you just say? The child cried so loudly that he could not speak. A child next to him whispered, Long Long gave his toy water gun to Jojo to play with, and Jojo accidentally shot it. At this point, he glanced at a child not far away with some fear. Everyone followed him and looked over. I saw the child standing alone on the lawn, a few steps away from the other children, and seemed a bit out of place. His face was cold, he looked arrogant and aloof, his expression was tense, his mouth was tightly pursed without saying a word. It was Li Rui. The children all seemed a little afraid of him, and a few were timid and backed away. Xiao Rui, what's wrong? It was Li Lei's voice. Now in this situation, everyone realized that he had something to do with Li Rui, so he had to ask out loud. Li Rui's answer was very concise, he wet my clothes and I took apart his toys. As soon as he finished speaking, the child cried louder. There were other children nearby who couldn't see it and added angrily, not only did he dismantle the toys, he also beat Jojo. It was only then that everyone noticed that the crying child had a large bruise at the corner of his eye, and his body was covered with broken grass leaves. Li Lei had a headache. Xiao Rui grew up in the Li family headquarters. He usually played with some men who were armed with live ammunition. He already had a solid fighting foundation at a young age, and because he was used to fighting with people in the family, I don't think this level of fighting is a big deal. However, the child named Jojo seemed to feel that the world was falling apart. Li Lei said to Li Rui, apologize to Jojo. Everyone looked at Li Rui, and some adults showed a hint of disgust in their eyes. This child of the Li family is still a direct relative. How could he be brought up so poorly? The education of the Li family is really worrying. Actually, they had wrongfully accused Li Lei. This child was not a direct relative at all, and Li Lei felt guilty towards Su Tang. Su Tang had the final say in educating Li Rui, and he did not interfere much. That's why Li Rui was raised like this. Fortunately, Li Rui was quite obedient in front of Li Lei. Seeing Li Lei's serious expression, although he was unwilling to do so, he still said to Jojo, "I'm sorry." There was a hint of natural arrogance in his tone, as if he was born to be superior to others. Jojo is still crying. His parents have already advised him, "Jojo, don't cry. Xiao Rui has already apologized to you." No matter how arrogant Li Rui is, he is Li Lei's only son. Among everyone present, no one can compare with Li Lei in terms of wealth and power, and no one wants to offend him. So, Jojo's parents could only endure this tone. "I'm really sorry," Li Lei said to Jojo's parents in a sensible manner. "I'll ask the family doctor to check on the child later, prescribe some medicine, and take care of him. Xiao Rui has just returned to China and is not used to the life here yet. Please don't take it to heart." Second young master Li is so polite, who else dares to take it to heart? Jojo's parents thanked her profusely. Jojo was sobbing. On the one hand, he was a little afraid of Li Rui. On the other hand, he also realized that there was no adult to support him, so he stopped crying. It was another child, Long Long, who squatted down to collect the toy fragments on the grass. The toy water gun that Li Rui had demolished was still lying quietly on the lawn. "That is Long Long's favorite toy," a child said in a small voice. "Uncle, can I buy another one for you?" Li Lei said to Long Long gently. Long Long shook his head stubbornly. The child on the side probably had a good relationship with Long Long and explained to him, "This is a birthday gift from Long Long's grandma." Li Lei was in a bit of a dilemma. The meaning of the birthday gift was unusual. What if the child refused to buy a new one? "Xiao Rui," Li Lei called Li Rui. Although he didn't care much about the child, he didn't want the child to develop a character of causing trouble everywhere and being irresponsible. He knew that Li Rui was very good at dismantling and assembling guns. Putting the dismantled toy back together was nothing difficult matter. Li Rui is very smart. As soon as Li Lei shouted, he understood what his father meant. However, he was unwilling to give in like this. Even if he had to help Long Long put the toys back, he still hoped that Long Long would beg him. He still raised his chin arrogantly and asked a little aloofly, "If you beg me, I can consider putting it back on for you." However, Long Long is not a fuel-efficient lamp. All the children present are the pride of heaven. They have been well dressed and well fed at home, and have been pampered and supported. Why do they like to beg for help? Long Long just didn't speak. The scene was frozen there. At this time, suddenly a little head popped up, with short arms and legs struggling to squeeze into the crowd. It turned out to be Xiao Hui. When the children had an argument just now, he didn't know where he was. Now that the argument was almost over, he arrived late. There were many broken grass leaves in her hair, and she was holding a toy bear in her arms. Xiaoling wanted to ask him where he had been just now, but after taking a quick glance, she felt that she couldn't bear to look directly at him. Behind him, several beautiful girls, holding play toys in their hands, also crowded over curiously. Sorry, just now the boys were playing with water guns, and Xiao Hui went to play house with the girls. Xiaoling seriously reflected on whether she had crippled this child. Here, she hadn't thought about the answer to the question clearly, but over there, Xiao Hui had already asked in a sweet voice, "What's the matter?" He has a soft approachability and children also like him very much. Hearing him ask, a child immediately told him what happened. Long Long wants to fight back with the water gun, Xiao Hui slurred. Long Long nodded, still very sad. Is the only way to go to Li Rui? As he was struggling, he saw a small figure of Xiao Hui squatting down, playing with the fragments of the water gun on the ground, moving it left and right, and after a while, he restored the water gun. Everyone was stunned, even Li Rui looked at him in disbelief. Everyone present is from a wealthy family, and the toys their children buy are all good. The structure of the water gun is complicated, and not ordinary children can restore it perfectly. However, from the outside, Xiao Hui really did it. The appearance and damage of the gun were exactly the same. But, who knows if it can still be used, Li Rui said disdainfully. As if to respond to his words, little Xiao Hui pulled the trigger, and some residual water sprayed out. It was obvious that the gun's function had been restored. Xiao Hui raised his cute little head and looked at Li Rui. What did you just say? End of this chapter. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 667. Chapter 667 Father and Son. Li Rui. He hated the child named Yeshaowai more and more. Xiaoling was also surprised. She didn't know that Xiao Hui, who seemed cute and harmless, had such skills. She usually saw him having a lot of fun playing with small animals, or playing house with a doll like this. It's so hidden. She was relieved because she knew that this child had not been raised too badly. Even though he was so silly and cute, he could still play well with the things that little boys like to play with. She was just surprised. Li Lei's eyes lit up. A layman looks at the excitement, an insider looks at the door, others think that Xiao Hui just assembled a toy water gun, but Li Lei can see that this child's skills are very skillful and professional, his movements are smooth, and his level is even better. Above Li Rui. Given time, this child will definitely become a master with guns. However, his eyes dimmed slightly, which was a pity. It's a pity that Xiaowai is not his son and cannot accept his systematic step-by-step instruction. If this child has been raised by Xiaoling's side, he will probably be with teddy bears, stages and stars in the future, right? The little Xiaowai knew nothing about his regret. He handed the water gun to Long Long, tilted his head slightly, and said cutely, I can repair a lot of things. If anything is broken, you can come to me. Long Long thanked him happily. A few children started chatting and laughing, and the girls on the side also praised Xiaowai for his greatness. Originally, the boys and girls who were playing were divided into two groups, but under Xiao Hui's help, they gathered together to play together. Li Rui, however, was still unsociable. Seeing them surrounding Xiao Hui like stars, he was very unhappy. He snorted coldly, turned around and walked away alone. Some parents noticed the scene and glanced at Li Lei anxiously. Among all the people present, Li Lei had the most power, and no one wanted to offend him. Li Lei also frowned a little. Li Rui, this kid, is too unsociable. After he goes back, he will discuss this issue with Sutang, otherwise, what should he do if the child keeps doing this? Over there, Xiao Hui played with everyone for a while and then ran away. The guests also dispersed and went about their business. Xiaoling was very reluctant to face Li Lei, so she deliberately avoided him and took a glass of cocktail to chat and laugh with the other guests. Li Lei didn't want to conflict with her in front of so many people, so he walked away. He went to find Xiaowai. For some reason, that child gave him a very strange feeling. He wanted to get closer to that child. Under the warm sunshine, he found Xiao Hui under a porch in the garden behind the banquet. The little child sat on the white steps, feeding a group of birds with some crumbs of food. Sensing someone coming, the birds flew away as if frightened. Xiao Hui looked up and saw Li Lei. He seemed a little confused as to why he came over. However, he still called uncle sweetly. Li Lei also had a complicated mood and asked him, why do you call me Sister Xiaoling and call me uncle? Does he look that old? The little child smiled cutely, because, uncle, you have a son, but my sister doesn't have one yet. Sister, don't you have me? Li Lei said with a black line on his face. Xiao Hui continued to say cutely, sister is sister. He lowered his head and patted the food crumbs on his hands, making it clear that he didn't want to argue with him about this issue anymore. Li Lei. He sat down next to the child and asked, what are you doing? Feed the birds, the child replied very matter-of-factly, and the soft childish voice made people's hearts melt. These little birds have nothing to eat, they are very pitiful. You like small animals very much? Lilay asked. Yeah, the child nodded. Uncle said that small animals are our friends and we must love and protect them. Who is your uncle? I can't say. The child shook his head and changed the subject. My sister also likes small animals. She raised a cat. It's so cute. It's so big. The child gestured with his hand. Sometimes they get into our bed in the middle of the night. They are so furry and so warm. Although Xiaoling is single, her bed is very busy. Often it is not enough to squeeze in Xiaohui, but a cat is also squeezed in, making it full. Lilay wanted to hear more about Xiaoling, and asked the child in detail how she met her, how she was adopted, what Xiaoling did every day these days, what she ate, and whether she had a good rest. Xiaohui took the trouble to answer every question in detail. Uncle, I have seen you, the child suddenly said. Oh, where? Lilay asked. In the photos, the child said. My sister sometimes looks at a few photos in a days. They are all of you, and sometimes there is a big one. He turned his head and thought for a while, searching for it from his poor vocabulary library. Noun, leopard. It seems that I have really seen him. Lilay's heart suddenly beat irregularly. Did sister say anything to you? No, the child shook his head in confusion. Every time I look at your photos, my sister seems unhappy and doesn't like to talk. Lilay was silent for a long time. He knew that he had hurt Xiaoling deeply and made her suffer. Xiaohui looked at him curiously, as if he didn't understand why he didn't speak. Uncle, he asked, are you usually like your sister, looking at photos in a daze? Yes, of course. Lilay said in his heart that his bedroom and study were filled with photos of her. He paid attention to her every trip. He rubbed the child's soft head. How about we go to Uncle's house to play some other time? Uncle has many photos of your sister and the big leopard, which is very fun. Really? The child's eyes lit up. Of course it's true, Lilay smiled. Uncle can also teach you how to assemble toys. The children looked very happy and cheered. The two were chatting harmoniously and did not notice at all that in the shadow of the woods nearby, a child stood gloomily and stared at Xiaohui fiercely. Children are all sensitive. At this moment, Li Rui had already felt that although his father was usually very kind to him, there was something different when facing Xiaohui. There seemed to be an aura between the two of them, enjoying themselves, which kept other people away. The main lawn of the banquet. Xiaoling chatted with many guests. When she turned around, she remembered that she hadn't seen Xiaohui for a long time. She asked two staff members, and they both said they didn't see the young master. She was a little anxious and started looking for him. Unknowingly, I came to the small porch at the back and saw a little child sitting next to a man, raising his little face and gesticulating and saying something, with a bright smile. The man next to him is Lilay. Xiaoling stopped. She didn't want to see Lilay and wanted to just turn around and leave. However, she was worried about what Lilay would do if he bullied Xiaohui. There were so many children, why didn't he find anyone else to play with, but instead came to see Xiaohui? For a while, heaven and man fought for a while. In the end, the instinct of maternal nature took advantage of the upper hand. She walked forward and called, Xiaohui. End of this chapter. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 668. Chapter 668. Both people, one large and one small, turned to look at her. She walked forward, knelt down to check on Xiaohui, and was relieved to see that he was intact and clean. Why are you staying here? She asked. Have you forgotten what my sister told you? Don't talk to weird people. Classmate Li Xiaoli. I was silent. Who is the weird person? Over there, Xiao Hui nodded in confusion. Oh, he then said to Xiaoling, this uncle invited me to play at his house. You're not allowed to go, Xiaoling said fiercely. Xiao Hui's face drooped, looking very unhappy. Xiaoling has a headache. What kind of magic did Li Lei cast to make Xiao Hui like to be close to him so much in just a short while? Or, as she was thinking, Li Lei had already interceded for Xiao Hui. He said he wanted to see Er Mao at my place. You know, Er Mao is a large beast and it's not convenient to take him out, so just let him go. Xiao Hui also raised his little face and looked at her expectantly. Xiaoling was still very fierce. No, seeing that Xiao Hui was unhappy, she softened her voice slightly and said, that uncle is a bad person. What do you mean by a bad person? The innocent Xiao Hui asked in a cute voice. Xiaoling knelt down. Is this child stupid? She gave up preaching to Xiao Hui, and this time, she said to Li Lei fiercely, if you don't let him go, you won't let him go. You can't even think of abducting him. Xiaoling, Li Lei's voice was very soft, don't you miss Er Mao? It misses you. Xiaoling suddenly fell silent. How could she not miss Er Mao all these years? When she was poisoned and mute by Pei Xian, it was Er Mao who risked his life to save her, and by the way, Li Lei. She had a complicated look on her face and turned her head sideways. Li Lei's voice became softer, go and see it. Leopards are different from humans. Their lifespan is very short. If you look at it, you will miss it in the conscience of heaven and earth. He did not curse Er Mao on purpose. It will be no problem to live another 10 or 8 years. The question is it easy for him to chase girls? He has exhausted all his tricks and has no choice but to resort to pets. Don't tell me, this trick is really useful. Xiaoling did hesitate for a moment. However, in just a short moment, she stood up and took Xiao Hui's hand. We're still going, so what if she misses Er Mao again? Long-term pain is worse than short-term pain, and we can't continue to keep it unclear. The little Xiao Hui was led by her, and he turned back with some hesitation, looking at Li Lei reluctantly. Li Lei didn't look at him, but looked deeply at the petite figure holding his hand. The wind blowing faintly in the corridor, her appearance was exactly what he had seen in his dreams. Xiaoling, he couldn't bear it any longer, rushed forward, pulled her into his arms, and kissed her deeply. She was frightened and unknowingly let go of Xiao Hui. His kiss was strong and domineering, not giving her any breathing space. She was panicked and angry. Why was he always like this? She wanted to tell him to let go, but no sound came out. Xiaoling struggled and tried to retreat. Li Lei simply pressed her against the beautifully carved long pillar in the corridor, and kissed her even more domineeringly. He didn't believe that she didn't have feelings for him, not even half a punctuation mark. That kid Xiao Hui said that she would stare at his photos in a daze. No matter how much she denies it or wants to push him away, her body will always be honest. She was almost suffocated by his kiss. She was exhausted and collapsed in his arms. In my heart, I was trembling. What is this, Li Lei, what is this? So many years of scars, leaving as soon as he said he was gone, coming back as soon as he said he would come back, robbing her unreasonably. What did he take her for? At this moment, she even hated herself, hated that her body still had the memory of him, and was defeated by his stormy offensive. There seems to be some movement over there. Suddenly, a clear voice said. Really? Let's go over and have a look, another voice said. Xiaoling's originally chaotic mind suddenly became clearer. This surprise was no small matter. Oh my God, if someone found her kissing a married man here, I'm afraid she wouldn't be able to clean herself up even if she jumped into the Yellow River. Her hands and feet were cold and she pushed Li Lei hard again. Li Lei still refused to let her go, pressing her against the wall and not letting her move at all. Over there, the voices of the two people who just spoke got closer. One of them said, Reporter Joe, why did Rainbow Media send you to interview this time? Don't you like to cover entertainment news? You can't say that, Reporter Lou, said the Joe reporter. I have exposed a lot of financial shady stories recently, and the entire financial circle is on guard against me. It's hard to dig up news. Come here to run entertainment news, just treat it like a vacation. And let the big guys in the financial world take a breather. Really, haha, why did Mr. Zhao, who just joined the investment bank, change his face when he saw you? The two people were chatting and laughing, getting closer and closer, and they turned out to be two reporters. Xiaoling was angry and frightened, and stretched out her hand to push Li Lei again. However, her hand was so weak that Li Lei could easily do whatever he wanted without even deliberately restraining her. Don't move, he whispered in her ear. Be careful if you make any noise, the two reporters will find you. She was frightened and did not dare to move. Her whole body was stiff, and only tears leaked out of the corners of her eyes. Xiao Hui tilted his little head and looked at them and the two reporters curiously. The two reporters walked outside the corridor, and at this time, Xiaoling heard a choking sound. I just said there was movement over there, Reporter Joe said. As the two of them talked, they were about to look behind the pillars. Xiaoling felt hot blood rushing to the top of her head, her face was hot, and she was shaking violently. What if someone discovered her, what would she do? But Li Lei didn't let her go and kissed her deeper. I saw two reporters coming over. I saw Xiao Hui jumping out of the house. What are you doing? He asked curiously with a sweet voice. When the two reporters saw it was him, they laughed. Xiao Xiaowai, was it you who was hiding behind the pillar just now? Yes, Xiaowai nodded, as if it was a matter of course. There were two birds fighting over there. I watched them for a while, and now they flew away. The two reporters looked at each other. It turned out that it was a child watching the birds play. There was no news. What a pity. I'm going to play with Li Rui, Xiaowai said innocently, as if he didn't see the meaning in their eyes. I just passed by on the lawn, and I saw that he didn't seem very happy. If I put my favorite toy if you give it to him to play with, would he be happier? Li Rui? Li Rui's mother and the sister of the child in front of her are clearly love rivals. These two children are in for a good show together. Let's go, we'll go find Li Rui with you. The two reporters made a quick decision and gave up going behind the pillar to find out. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weiniang. Chapter 669. Chapter 669. The fight started. When Xiaoling heard that the person was gone, she felt exhausted and collapsed in Li Lei's arms. Li Lei hugged her and kissed her again before finally letting her go. He gently arranged her messy long hair and clothes with his fingers, and said in a very soft voice, "Don't be so afraid, they are gone." These words suddenly ignited all her anger. She didn't know where she got the strength, so she slapped him hard. A crisp sound. 5 clear fingerprints appeared on his cheek. "Don't let me see you again," she said bitterly and left without looking back. She walked very fast along the way, and she felt that the anger in her heart was about to explode. She walked with wind, causing the corners of her tulle lace fairy skirt to fly. She walked calmly through the crowd with a delicately made-up face, looking at the surroundings. He turned a blind eye to the curious glances from all kinds of people. "Miss Yet! Miss Yet!" As she walked to the guard at the door, several security guards greeted her one after another. "Who told you to let Li Lei in?" She was very angry. "Kick him out." But, several security guards looked at each other awkwardly. "He has an invitation letter." "His invitation is fake." Xiaoling became even more angry. She thought that everything would be fine if she didn't send invitations to irrelevant people, but she never thought that someone was so despicable that he could even forge invitations. The security guards were still in a bit of a dilemma. Mr. Lee was also a reputable person. Even if he forged the invitation, it was more like a harmless joke. It would be too ugly to kick people out in front of everyone. However, the Master of Heaven and Earth is the biggest family. Since Monsieur gave this order, they had no choice but to carry it out. The security guard headed by him picked up the walkie-talkie and gave some instructions to the patrol staff in the infield. Unexpectedly, here, no one has been caught yet, but there is another commotion over there. It's not good, it's not good, someone exclaimed. Young Master Xiaowai and young Master Li Rui are fighting. Many guests did not mind the excitement and rushed towards the direction of the sound. Xiaoling also hurriedly ran over there. She knew that Xiaowai's child was so cute and cute. He would not even step on a small insect to death. Sometimes when a moth entered the room in the villa, he would be surprised. He drives the moths away obediently and never kills any living thing. And what about Li Rui? Apart from this time, she had seen the child twice and was beaten by the child both times. She was afraid that Xiao Hui would be bullied. However, when we arrived at the scene, we were shocked. They saw that it was Xiao Hui who pushed Li Rui to the ground and beat him hard, waving his little arms and legs, looking very energetic. Li Rui, on the other hand, tried to fight back several times, but was dodged by Xiao Hui just right. This is unscientific, a guest had already shouted. Xiaowai looks shorter than Li Rui. How can he be so good at fighting? I heard that Li Rui has practiced kung fu. The onlookers were convinced. It is said that the bigger children should bully the smaller children. How can it be the other way around? What's more, Li Rui always has a stern face and is difficult to mess with at first glance, while Xiao Hui is so cute. The scene in front of them forced them to face reality. The reality is, Xiao Hui beat Li Rui until he was unable to fight back. The two children were covered in mud, and Li Rui's face and clothes were stained with blood, which looked shocking. Although it is not a big deal when boys fight, it is bloody. Someone rushed forward and tried to break up the fight. Xiaowai, stop it, don't fight. After saying that, he reached out to pull the two children, mainly Xiao Hui, but did not pull away. This child looks short and chubby with a little baby fat. He is really unambiguous when it comes to fighting, and even adults can't pull him away suddenly. Xiaowai, Xiaoling also called. She didn't know what was wrong with this child. He usually had a soft temper and would not get angry even if he was occasionally scolded by a servant. This was the first time she had seen him lose such a temper. I don't know if Xiao Hui heard it or not. In short, he kept beating Li Rui. While beating him, he said fiercely, "Apologize," but his voice was so soft that it made people laugh and cry. Xiaowai, came another male voice. It was Li Lei. He didn't know when he arrived here. He rushed forward and reached out to grab Xiao Hui's hand. He didn't know how he moved, but he took Xiao Hui off Li Rui in a few moves. "Don't touch my child," Xiaoling was anxious. She stepped forward, snatched Xiao Hui from his hand, and held him in her arms. Li Lei did not stop her. After handing Xiao Hui to her, he leaned down to check Li Rui. "Xiao Rui, how are you? Where are you injured?" The kid Li Rui was very stubborn. Although he was beaten to a gray face and was covered in blood, he didn't say a word. He got up angrily and patted the dirt on his body. "Where is the injury?" Li Lei looked at the blood all over his body and was shocked. In order to attend Xiaoling's banquet, he secretly brought Xiao Rui out. If the child was injured, how should he explain to Sutang when he returned? After all, Xiao Rui is not his biological child. It is difficult to be a stepmother, and it is equally difficult to be a stepfather. Li Rui then said dully, "I'm not injured." Li Lei was startled. and even the onlookers around him were also startled. Suddenly, Xiaoling's urgent voice was heard, "Doctor! Call the doctor quickly!" Everyone then turned to look at the other child involved, Xiao Hui. I saw little Xiaowei being held in Xiaoling's arms, his little arm was bleeding, and he was comforting, "Sister, I don't feel any pain." He didn't feel any pain, but Xiaoling felt so heartbroken that her heart clenched. She called the doctor repeatedly, held the child in her arms and ran towards the restroom. Many people followed, even Li Lei, who was startled and followed him with Li Rui. This banquet is mainly for children to socialize and gather. When it was held, in consideration of various accidents, a specialized pediatrician was already on site. At this time, Xiao Hui was diagnosed and treated immediately. "How did you get injured?" The doctor held up Xiao Hui's little arm and asked. "It was broken by a stone," Xiao Hui said softly, and then added, "Doctor, this is really a very small wound, right? Tell your sister quickly that Xiao Hui is fine, so that she won't feel sad anymore." Xiaoling originally felt uncomfortable. When she heard what he said, her nose felt sore and she almost shed tears. "Sister, if you don't cry, Xiaowei really doesn't feel any pain," the chubby child comforted him softly. "This kid is really sensible," some onlookers who followed said. "It's only because I'm so sensible that I beat Li Rui like that," the other group had different opinions. Everyone's eyes swept between the two children, speculating on what happened, full of interest in gossip. End of this chapter. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weiniang. Chapter 670. Chapter 670, Crazy. Xiaoling didn't care about all this and asked the doctor hurriedly, "Is the child okay?" The doctor stopped Xiao Hui's bleeding, bandaged the wound carefully, and checked other parts of his body. "It's not serious. It looks like he's bleeding a lot, but his muscles and bones are not injured. He will be fine with some time. As for children, stumbling is inevitable, and they are no longer so fragile, so Monsieur doesn't need to worry too much." Actually, the child's injury was a little more serious than he said. There was such a big hole in his arm. Fortunately, he met an old doctor like him. Any other doctor would have required stitches. The old doctor originally wanted to teach Xiao Hui a lesson and tell him not to be playful in the future. However, after seeing Xiao Hui's cute and begging eyes and looking at Xiaoling Xuan's crying look beside him, he decided not to irritate Ye yet. "Mademoiselle." Hearing what the old doctor said, Xiaoling felt relieved a little. After the old doctor treated Xiao Hui's wounds, he went to check on Li Rui. He saw that many parts of Li Rui's body were swollen by Xiao Hui, but there was no blood. "Just apply some medicine to reduce swelling," the old doctor said. "If you are worried, you can go to the hospital for an examination to see if there is internal bleeding." Li Lei thanked the doctor. In the crowd of onlookers, a reporter asked the two children, "Why did they start fighting?" Li Rui gave the reporter a cold look and said nothing. Xiao Hui didn't speak either. "This is really strange. Usually children will rush to complain after a fight, but what about these two children?" Each one of them was so silent as if they were afraid that others would know the reason. The reporters became even more interested. The two reporters who had just accompanied Xiao Hui to find Li Rui were also present. They looked at each other and remained silent. They saw with their own eyes how the two children fought, but this kind of news was exclusive. How could they share it with others? The more silent the two children were, the happier they were. Okay, let's all disperse and let the two children have a good rest." Lin Yunan came out to smooth things over. Xiaoling is hosting a banquet today, and as her manager and staff, he has to be there to help. The onlookers dispersed without being satisfied, and even the old doctor also left. Only Xiaoling, Li Lei, and their two children were left at the scene. Xiaoling looked at Xiao Hui and then asked, "Tell me, what's going on?" Xiao Hui looked at her innocently, soft and waxy. It's okay, Xiao Rui and I are just playing around. You can knock people to the ground and beat them when you are joking. Li Rui snorted coldly. Li Lei frowned. What are you humming for? Neither child said a word. He intuitively felt that something was fishy and couldn't help asking Li Rui, what's going on? Li Rui then said slowly, he was very annoyed, so I hit him with a stone. The little jumped on me and hit me. He did not tell the whole story. He lost this fight. Well, he didn't want to explain such embarrassing things clearly. Who are you calling a little bastard? Xiaoling glared at him. Although she liked children very much, it didn't mean that she could tolerate other children insulting her own children like this. Li Rui sneered, so and so knows. Li Rui, Li Lei shouted to stop him, apologize to Aunt Ye and brother Xiaowai. I don't. Li Rui is very stubborn, his temper is like Sutang, arrogant and aloof, and he has the same temper. Xiaoling was so angry that she called the security guard repeatedly. Where are the security guards? Why don't we kick out these two that got in? Why did this child say this to Xiao Hui? Bastard. Xiaowai is pitiful enough without a father or a mother, but it's not his fault that he still has to endure such an insult. Xiaoling, I'm really sorry, Li Lei said. I will take Xiao Rui and leave. You. Get out. She was going crazy and stared at him. Take your son and leave my house. Stay away, kid. And does he know how to write the word bastard? Does he know who the is? Xiaoling, this time, Li Lei's expression changed slightly. How could she say this to Li Rui? Li Rui was not his biological child. Apart from Sutang and the old man, only he and she knew about it. Everyone in the outside world and Li Rui himself thought that Li Rui was his direct flesh and blood. Don't go too far. His was a little heavy, in order to protect Li Rui. Xiaoling sneered, who is too much? She pointed to the door, get out. Li Lei, get out of here right now. It's not enough for you to bully me, you also let your children bully my children. You are not welcome here, get out. She was furious. Li Lei understood that now was not the time to reason. If the argument continued like this, she might say something even more unpleasant. He didn't come to this party today to make her angry. So, he took Li Rui's hand and said, I'm really sorry, Xiaoling. I'll come to apologize another day. Turn around and leave with Li Rui. Wait a minute. Suddenly, Xiao Hui stopped them in a soft and cute voice. Li Lei turned around, lowered his head, and looked at the child inquiringly. When you apologize, remember to bring Li Rui with you. Xiao Hui said word by word, very seriously, he owes me an apology. Also, I am not a younger brother, he should call me elder brother. Li Lei was surprised. This child looked shorter than Li Rui, so how could he be bigger than Li Rui? Li Rui snorted coldly from his nose, apologize. You're dreaming. I'll let someone come and kill you. Xiao Rui, this time, Li Lei was much more severe. This child was really spoiled by him. He looked so arrogant that he didn't know how to get along well with other children. Li Rui stopped talking and looked away. Xiao Hui looked at Li Lei seriously, Uncle Li, I'm very happy that you can play with me today and invite me to your house to see Mao. However, you shouldn't bully my sister. If you don't let Li Rui come and apologize, don't come to play with me anymore. Xiaoling was confused when she heard this. Where is all this? Li Lei's bullying of her was probably referring to the incident of being forcibly kissed behind the porch. But what does this have to do with whether Li Rui comes to apologize? It's really confusing. Li Lei, on the other hand, had heard a little bit about the secrets. Dare, this matter also involves Xiaoling? His expression became serious. Xiao Hui stopped talking to him. He raised his baby fat face and looked at Xiaoling with twinkling eyes. Sister, can we go find other children to play? You're already hurt like this, and you still want to play. Xiaoling was angry and funny. Child Xiaowei nodded vigorously. I promised Sister Cherry that I would help her build a building block castle. My uncle said that the worst people are those who break their promises to girls. End of this chapter.